Okay, so today we're going to talk about some more advanced find and replace techniques in LibreOffice. So first of all, we need to download a file, and we're going to work with a file that we worked on in our previous classes, which was a file based on your assignment about your IT experience. So let's go to Documents, and I'm going to enlarge the page a little bit. So if you go to Activities and you go to Formatting, you've got this file, IT Experience, the 9th of March, because that's the date of our last class in the building. So I'm going to download this file and I'm going to open it. Right, so this is the file we worked on, and of course it has styles applied to it because that's what we worked on. We worked on the styles, so we've got a few styles. If I select applied styles here, you will see that we've got 4 styles. I'm not sure if the default style is actually applied, but definitely we've got text body here, we've got the heading, and we've got those comments, right, which we turned the last paragraph of each section into a comment with a different font, with a different style. So we're going to need these styles because we look at some find and replace options that work with styles. Right, so we can actually replace styles in the text, so we need that. But the first thing I'm going to do at this point is remove some extra new lines which have still been left here for some reason, so which have survived. And you know that it's not a good idea to format your page using new lines, right? So all these gaps should be defined in styles, and they are, right? So we have to make sure that all those spaces, all the spacing is consistent, that it's the same between all the paragraphs and all the sections, right? Okay, so so this is the file we'll be working with. So the first thing I'm going to do at this point is to add some manual formatting, which in many situations should be avoided, but it has its uses. And we want to add that formatting because very often you will be working with texts created by someone else, and there will be manual formatting. So some people will have selected parts of the text and changed the formatting to those parts of the text. And perhaps you want to make some changes to that formatting. Maybe you want to remove it, or maybe you want to actually change the look of that formatting without necessarily converting that to styles. So so we look at that. So what I'm going to do is to select some text. So in this case, I'm going to look for names of, so something that normally you would probably do using character styles. In this case, we're going to select those words, and just manually I'm going to press Ctrl B to make it bold, right? So all those situations, all those words, well, at least most of them, doesn't have to be everything, but I can quite quickly, by double clicking and Ctrl B, I can quickly change the formatting of those words. All right, so we have PowerPoint here, we've got Microsoft Word, we've got Excel, we've got Microsoft Office Word, we've got Microsoft Office Excel. Right, so let's let's go up, because I must have skipped something. I didn't actually start from the beginning. So yes, in perhaps even these, they're not strictly speaking, but they are software. I mean, they are web applications, so we can treat them as software. And here we've got Word and Excel. Okay, so we've got some words selected. Let's say we received this file, we've opened it, and we've got all this manual. Okay, so let's imagine we've got this file open, and the formatting is already there. So of course, if we just wanted to remove the manual formatting, we could select the whole text or just those paragraphs and remove the manual formatting. And if you remember, under Format, you've got Clear Direct Formatting, and the shortcut is Ctrl and M, right? So I could just clear it, right? And then it's gone. But maybe we want to actually preserve this formatting, or maybe we want to change it, right? So we want these words to be highlighted, but we want a different kind of highlighting. Or maybe we want to change that manual formatting to character styles, so that we have control later over how they look. We can open the Find and Replace dialog, and if you remember, the shortcut is Ctrl H. In most applications, in Microsoft Word as well, Ctrl H is for Find and Replace. Ctrl F is just for finding something quickly, but this dialog appears after pressing Ctrl H, or you can go to Edit and Find and Replace, right? So Ctrl H, and here we've only talked about finding text and replacing it and using these options, right? Match case, where we want to where we want the words to have the same case. In other words, if a word starts with a capital letter, if we type in Excel, for example, right, and I do find all, you can see that this is selected here, obviously. But if I type in Excel with a lowercase e, this is still selected, right? So even if I deselect it, it's still selected. But if I actually want Excel to be spelled or punctuated with a lowercase e, I would select this, and then this will not be found. Only those cases where the first letter is actually lowercase will be found. And of course, in this case, this turns red because there are no such words in the text. So of course, another option we looked at is whole words only. So this is of course very useful if we're looking for a specific word, but not when it's part of another word, right? So if I type in, for example, I'm sorry, if I type in my, and actually the reason this is grayed out is because I've got this selected here. So you have to be very careful, because we look at some of these settings and you have to make sure that only those are selected that you actually want, right? Because they remain selected from your previous searches, right? So this may change how this works, and we look at that. So I'm going to deselect that, and you can see that this option becomes available. So I'm going to select whole, well actually I'll deselect it and I'll look at what I found, or what the program has found, and you can see that it has found myself, and maybe I don't want that. I just want the not pronoun but adjective, personal adjective, my, right? So in that case, if I select whole words only and do find all, then you can see that myself is not selected, right? I don't even know where it is at this point, but it's not selected. So that's of course very useful, these two. That's why they're here, right, at the top, because they're so basic, you could say, right? You really need these two options to be available. But below you have other options, right? So you can actually show these or hide them, right? So we look at these options. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory. So we look at most of them, perhaps except regular expressions, which are a slightly more advanced subject. So not everybody needs to know about them and be able to use them. But we'll look at... Okay, so let's get back to our text. I'm going to click here so that everything is deselected. And let's say we want to actually select all these words that have been manually formatted and do something to them, right? So perhaps change the formatting. So what we can do, you can see these options here, and we can select, so we can click attributes here, right? So, and you can see here different attributes, right? Like font color, font size, hyphenation, lots of these, spacing and so on. So basically what this means, that we will select words whose attributes have been changed manually, right? So for example, if the font has been changed manually, then we will want to select the font, right? But in that case, in our case here, what has been changed is font weight, right? So whether the text is bold or regular, that's font weight. So how heavy it is in a way. So if I select this and do OK, this attribute is already selected. So I I don't even need to type anything here, because if I leave this word here, it will look for just this word, right? And I don't think this word has been manually formatted anywhere, right? So we don't even need to type anything here. We just want to find all those words whose font weight has been changed. And you can see here, this is shown, right? So we know that we'll be looking at words whose font weight, words or characters whose font weight has been changed, right? Let's see if it works. It does, right? So all those words where the font weight has been changed have been selected. Of course, we can narrow it down by actually typing in a word, right? So if I want to find all the instances of the word Excel with the font weight changed, I would do that, right? And it will select it. But only where it actually is bold, right? If there was an instance of Excel which is not bold, that wouldn't be selected, right? So this is like an extra parameter, extra feature. Okay, and of course you can see that you've got all those different attributes, right? If the font has been changed, the font effects, the font color, right? So let's imagine that I select this word and make it red. And bold, right? And press Ctrl H, right? And so I look for this word, or just in general words which where the font weight has been changed. Of course, all of these will be found because all of these have had their font weight changed. But if I go here and select font color as well, right, you can see font weight and font color, right? So in this case, if I do find all, only this one will be found, because for this word, both the font weight and the font color have been changed, right? Of course, I can select just the color if I wish, right? And of course, again, the same word will be selected because that's the only word where the color has been changed, right? So remember, we're talking about formatting which has been applied manually. So someone actually selected this word and, you know, changed the font weight or okay, so these are the attributes, and you can search for attributes in this field, and you can see the attributes selected here underneath, right? Each time you want to do a new search and you want to search for something else, you have to remember to press no format here, right? If you no longer want to search for that attribute. So you can search for general attributes like, is the font bold? Has the color been changed? And so on. So this is a very general search. That's why it doesn't work here. So you cannot replace something with this, right? Because you cannot say, well, change the font color, because the question is what color, right? So this is good for searching. If you want to replace it with something, you have to specify what exactly you want to replace it with, right? So maybe you want to replace all the words which are bold or whose font weight has been changed manually to bold, right? So font weight, and you can find all of them. And so you can see font weight here, obviously. But here you would type in what you want to change, what you want to replace them with, right? So maybe you want to replace those words with a specific word, which is perhaps not very likely, but that's a possibility. Usually though, you will want to replace that or those words, you will want to replace the formatting, or you will want to change the formatting in some way, right? So you will probably use this, right? So you will specify, okay, I want all of these words which are bold now, which have manually been changed to bold, with, let's say, italic, right? And you can see, because the cursor was here, I've got italic here, right? So in that case, if I do first find all, that's the selected, and replace all, they're all replaced with italics, or perhaps not strictly replaced, but this aspect is added, right? So let me just clear this again. So the cursor is here, I'll do no format, and I'll go back here, and I will also do no format. So I can select the attributes, or I can select the specific values, right? So this button, format, is for more specific searches, where we actually want to specify, okay, I'm looking for a specific font size or a specific font color, right? Here we just specified, okay, find me something where the color is different, where it has been changed manually, or where the size has been changed, right? Here we are specifying, find me all the words that whose size has been changed to, let's say, 15, right? So I can say, okay, let me find, let me change the size of a word, right? Because it will not find words that are the specific size, for example, if the size is defined in the style, right? So we're talking about manual formatting all the time, right? So if I change computer, if I change the size to 15, right? And here in this field, I select format and I say 15. Okay. Find all, it will find computer, because here the size has been changed to 15, and you can see it here underneath, right? So you can select a specific property or specific value. In this case, you can say, okay, I'm looking for words with this font family, this font style, maybe a certain color, and so on, but only if that has been changed manually, right? And you can do the same here, right? So you can replace it with something. So maybe so perhaps let's work with those words which we've selected before, right? So maybe first I'll look for words which are this size, 15, so it will obviously find computer, and let me replace that with so let's change the size back to 12 and see if that works. So you can see, find anything with anything that is 15, right, manually changed, to 12, right? So computer is found, let's replace it, right? And we've got computer changed back to size 12, right? So now I'm going to, again, the cursor has to be in the field that we are working with. So find, right, find, Unfortunately, when I scroll the wheel, all those previous searches appear. But yeah, so the cursor has to be here, and then I do no format. So I'm basically clearing this. I'm resetting this, right? And here I'm doing the same, right? So again, this disappears. So I'm going to find all the words where the formatting has been changed to italic, right? And again, I've made a mistake because the cursor was here, right? You have to be very careful. So again, I'm clearing this, and the cursor has to be here. So I select 12. I'm sorry. I select, let me just cancel that. So I select italic, right? Find all, and all these words are selected because they have been changed to italics manually. And I want to replace that with regular. Okay, not italic, normal, right? So replace. So of course this is changing manual formatting using this find and replace function. But of course it's a better idea in most cases to work with styles. And we've got paragraph styles, which we've been working with, but we also have character styles. And character styles define not the whole paragraph, but individual words, phrases, sentences. So we can actually apply a style to individual words and phrases. So in this case, perhaps we just want to have more control, and we want all these words to have one character style. And then we make changes to all those words at the same time easily, right? So we can use the Control H, find and replace dialog again. Make sure that nothing is that nothing appears here, right? So we want to do no format for both fields, and again we want to find those words where the formatting has been changed. So we could use either of these depending on how much we know about the formatting here. So if we know that it's italic, we could obviously use this, right, and select italic. Or we could use the attributes, right? So it depends on the situation. So in this case, we know that this is italic. So I think if we select italic here, maybe even bold italic, because it looks like bold italic, and find all of these will be selected. And because they are selected, we can now easily apply a style, right? So you can see that we've got the default style, which is applied by default to the whole text. But we want a special style for this. So maybe we can create a new style, or we can use a style that already exists here. So because we want to give these words some extra emphasis, maybe we'll use, or we'll select this emphasis style here, right? And we can obviously change how it looks later. So by double clicking, I've applied that style, I think, at least. Of course, nothing seems to change because the manual formatting is still there, right? So at this point, just to make sure, when I click here, you can see the default style here, right? But if I click here, this should change to emphasis. So I'm just making sure that this is the style applied, and you can see it here. So at this point, if I select everything and Control M to clear the formatting and go back, you can see that the boldness has been removed, right? And so this is what this character style looks like. It doesn't look very nice because of the font, I think, yeah, but at this point we can just select, we can just right click, modify, and we can change its features, right? So we can say that we want, for example, a different font, such as, I don't know, Cambria. Doesn't look good with italics applied, but yeah, we've got Calibri here, so we could say, okay, we want bold italic maybe, right? And you can apply it, right? And okay, and at this point, of course, we have full control because all these words will look always the same when we change the style here. In most cases, you can also apply it to this one. Okay, so let's now clear these fields. So I'm going to press no format. Let's make sure that both of them are clear, and we'll talk about replacing paragraph styles. So if we go back to paragraph styles here in the corner, we've got a few styles applied, and we can see, of course, when we go here, we can select applied styles. So we want applied styles to be shown here. So sometimes there may be a situation where you would want a certain style in the text replaced with another style automatically, right? So you have this option here, paragraph styles, right? And when you click it, you can see that these fields change. So we are no longer looking for text, for specific text. We're not typing anything here. We can just replace one style with another. So in some situations that might be quite useful. So in this text, if you remember, we changed those last paragraphs of each section. We applied this comment style, right? We've got this comment style here. So if we wanted all those paragraphs to have the same style, so to have the text body style instead, we would actually, in normal circumstances, we would just have to select all those paragraphs and change the style. So if we were working with a long document, that would be quite a job, right? A lot of work, and we could of course miss something that wouldn't be ideal. So in that situation, of course, it is very useful to have this option, right? So in this case, you can see that this is actually already selected, right? Let's find the comment style, so all the paragraphs with the comment style applied, and let's replace that with, and we've got all these styles that we can choose from. So this is a whole list of styles available at this point, including the styles that we've created, right? So we can see that we want the text body style, right? We want to have this these paragraphs to have the same style as the rest of the text. So replace with text body, and if we're lucky, this should work, right? So if I click find all, this of course finds all these paragraphs with the comment style. this is also useful if we just want to find those parts of text that have this style, right? We don't always need to replace it with something else. But in this case, we're going to do just that. We're going to replace the comment style with the text body style. So I'll do replace all, and you can see that this has worked, right? So all of these have. So the last feature I would like to talk about is a similarity search. So if we open the find and replace dialog again with Control H, you can see that we've got the previous settings. So it's always important to make sure that we remove any settings from the previous search. In this case, it's pretty obvious that the search has been changed. So here we just untick paragraph styles, and we make sure that nothing else is selected, and also here we have no extra attributes or formatting. Okay, so you can see that you've got this option here, similarity search. So that's what we want to talk about for a while. This is quite a useful feature if we want to look words which look similar, or words which are forms of other words, for example. Let's say you want to look for both the singular and the plural of a word, right? So let me type in computer here, right? I'm sure that there are some instances of computer in this text. So if I do find all, you can see quite a lot of words, right? Computer, 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 right? And actually computers here, right? It has also been selected because computer is part of computers, right? In terms of its letters. So that's because we haven't selected whole words only, right? But it hasn't selected the whole word, right? It's selected part of the word. So if you wanted to make some changes to these words, it wouldn't apply it to the S at the end, which might not be ideal, right? Let's say you wanted to change the formatting, right, of all the words that contain computer. So words like computer, computers, probably just these two, but you know, that's not ideal. So in this case, we actually want whole words only, because we want to select whole words, not parts of words, right? In this situation. So if I do find all now, computers will not be selected, right? So how do I make sure, or how could I have computers also selected? So maybe this similarity search would work. So let's see. Okay, and I can't see any computers. Yeah, it's here. So you can see that this time, even though whole words only is selected, it also finds computers, because it looks for words based on this similarity search here, right? So if I click on this, you've got some settings, right? So these settings mean that, or they define what can be changed and how many letters or characters, right? So exchange characters tool, which means 2 letters or 2 characters can be changed in the word, and it will still find that word, right? Add characters, so 2 characters can be added. So it will also find computers because S has been added, which is just 1 character. It would also add. It would also find the ed ending of a verb, for example, right? I mean the ed form, the past form of a verb, which can be useful in many situations. So we're talking about adding characters and also removing characters, right? So if we search for, let's say, the past form talked, it would also find talk, right? And of course we can change these settings to allow for more, to allow for more words to be found. Of course we have to be careful, because then also some other words might be found which we don't want, right? So it's a question of trial and error with these settings, depending on what we want to achieve. So right, so in this situation, of course, we can do what we want with these results, right? We can replace them with some other item, or we can some other word, or we can change the formatting and so on, right? Okay, so I found I'm going to find all instances of information technology, right? But I'm going to turn this off, right? The similarity search, because I just want to find information technology, right? Yeah, so hello words only, although in this case, obviously, this will not be part of another word, so that's not a problem. So I'm going to find everything, and of course you can see that quite a lot has been found, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace all of these with computing. Replace all, right? So we've got my school computing, how I started to use computing, which sounds a little strange, my computing experience, and so on, right? My experience with computing, and so on. So now we have some instances of computing. So if I now type in computer, right, computer, and I've got the previous entry, so and I'm not replacing with anything. I'm just going to select similarity search and try find all again, and you can see what happens, right? So I've got so it also selected computing, right? So it's an interesting way to try to find related words, right? So it will find computers, computing, because, well, if you look at computing, basically two letters have been changed, right? ER has been changed to IN, and one character has been added, G, right? So that's probably how it works. It first looks at characters that it can change, so it can change two, and then it can add two as well. So in this case, even if I change this to just one, this should still work, right? But of course, if I say don't add anything, just change, right? In this case, it will not find it. It will just find computer, because it cannot add anything. So we can change these settings depending on what we want, right? Maybe we just want words that have some characters added but nothing changed, right? Like past simple forms, ed, right? Okay, so this is a useful feature which in many situations can be very helpful, and you can